Papa, there's a lady dying in the snow. Grace Thornton's scream cut through the blizzard like a knife. She was already running, her little sister Rosie stumbling behind her, 4-year-old Billy clutching his bear and following without a sound. Samuel Thornton dropped his tools and ran. The woman lay face down in a drift, her fingers blue, her lips cracked, her body so still he thought they were too late. Then she moved, one hand reaching up, grabbing his coat, pulling herself toward him with the last strength she had. "Please," she whispered, "please don't let me die alone." If you're watching from somewhere warm tonight, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now settle in, because what happens next will shatter your heart into pieces before it puts it back together. Samuel lifted the woman from the snow. She weighed almost nothing. That was the first thing he noticed. The second was the scars on her wrist, visible where her sleeve had pulled back. Old scars, the kind that came from grabbing something hot or being grabbed by something cruel. "Grace, get the wagon ready. Rosie, grab every blanket we got. Billy?" He looked at his youngest son, standing silent in the snow. "Stay close to Papa." "Is she dead?" Rosie asked, her breath coming in white puffs. "Not yet." "She gonna be dead?" "Not if I can help it." The woman's eyes fluttered open. Green, he noticed. Green like spring grass, like something that didn't belong in all this white and gray. She looked at him, then at the children gathered around, and something in her expression shifted from fear to confusion. "Children," she breathed. "You have children." "3 of them. And they're the reason you ain't dying today, so hold on." He carried her to the wagon, his boots steady despite the wind trying to knock him sideways. Grace had already pulled back the canvas, piled blankets in the bed, found the hot bricks they'd wrapped in cloth for the ride home. "Put her here, Papa." Grace's voice was calm, too calm for a 9-year-old. The voice of a child who'd already seen too much loss. "I'll keep her warm." Samuel set the woman down, gentle as he could. Her hand caught his sleeve before he could pull away. "Why?" she asked. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done. Why would you help me?" "Because my kids found you, and my kids don't find things by accident." He climbed up to the driver's seat and snapped the reins. The horses lurched forward into the white. In the wagon bed, Rosie pressed herself against the woman's side. "I'm real warm. Mama always said I was like a little furnace. She said God made me extra warm because I was born in January, and He didn't want me to be cold." The woman's cracked lips moved. "Your mama sounds wise." "She was. She's dead now." "Rosie," Grace's sharp voice. "You don't just tell people that." "Why not? It's true." The woman turned her head, looked at the 2 girls huddled beside her. Then her eyes found Billy, sitting in the corner of the wagon, his ragged bear clutched to his chest, watching her with eyes that held no expression at all. "What's his name?" she whispered. "Billy," Rosie said. "He don't talk much, not since Mama died. Papa says his words got stuck somewhere, and they'll come out when they're ready." "How long has it been?" 18 months, Grace said quietly. "Mama died having him. He never knew her at all." The woman closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. "I'm sorry," she said. "Everybody's sorry." Grace's voice was flat. "Sorry don't bring her back." "No, it doesn't." Something passed between them, the woman and the girl. Some understanding that had nothing to do with words and everything to do with loss. Billy moved. It was such a small thing, just a shift, a slide across the wagon bed. But when he settled again, he was closer to the woman. His bear still clutched tight, but his shoulder touching her arm. Grace's breath caught. "He don't do that," she whispered. "He don't go near strangers. Not ever. The woman looked down at the small boy pressed against her side. She didn't touch him, didn't speak, just let him be there, sharing warmth in the cold. "What's your name?" Rosie asked. "I'm Rosie Thornton. That's Grace. She's 9 and bossy. That's Billy. He's 4 and quiet. Our papa's name is Samuel, but everybody calls him Sam, except Mama called him Samuel because she said it sounded more dignified. Eleanor." The woman's voice was stronger now, still rough, but stronger. "Eleanor Prescott. That's a pretty name. You're pretty too, even with your lips all blue." "Rosie," Grace again. "Well, she is." The wagon jolted over a hidden rock. Eleanor winced, and Billy pressed closer, his small body a point of heat against her frozen side.
"Almost home," Samuel called back. 5 more minutes."
Home. The word hit Eleanor somewhere deep. She hadn't had a home in 18 months, hadn't had anywhere to belong, anywhere to rest, anywhere that wanted her. She'd been walking since Boston, through towns that looked at her scars and her worn clothes and her lack of references and saw only trouble. Through cities that had no room for a woman alone. Through countryside that offered nothing but more road, more distance, more running from a past that followed no matter how far she went. She'd stopped hoping for home somewhere around Pennsylvania, stopped believing in kindness around Ohio. By the time she'd reached Montana Territory, she'd stopped believing in much of anything at all. And now here she was, in a wagon full of blankets and children, being carried through a blizzard by a stranger who hadn't asked a single question about why she was dying in the snow. "Mr. Thornton," she called out, her voice cracking. "Sam."
"Sam, why did you stop? You could have driven past. Most people would have."
"Most people ain't got 3 kids who'd never forgive them for leaving a woman to die." "That's not an answer." The wagon slowed. Samuel turned on the seat, looked back at her with eyes the color of winter sky. "My wife died 18 months ago. Left me with 3 children and a farm, and no idea how to do any of it without her. You know how many people stopped to help? 1. Old Ezekiel from the feed store. And he had to sneak out at night because the rest of the town decided helping me wasn't worth the trouble." "Why?" "Because I won't sell my land to a man who wants to turn it into railroad profit. Because I used to be a lawman, and I know too much about how things really work. Because I told Judge Cornelius Wade to go to hell when he tried to take what's mine." Samuel's jaw tightened. "This territory runs on power, Miss Prescott. Wade's got it, I don't. So my wife died alone, except for me and Ezekiel. And my kids ain't allowed in the school. And every door in Silver Creek closes when I knock. I know what that's like. I figured you might. Takes one to know one." He turned back to the horses, and the wagon rolled on. The farmhouse appeared through the snow like something from a dream. Solid, real, with light glowing in the windows and smoke rising from the chimney. Samuel must have left lamps burning, Eleanor realized. Left the fire going. Like he'd known he'd need the warmth when he got back. Or like he couldn't bear to come home to a dark house anymore. He carried her inside. She'd tried to protest, tried to say she could walk, but her legs had other ideas. They buckled the moment her feet touched ground, and Samuel caught her without a word, scooped her up, and carried her through the door like she belonged there. The heat hit her like a wall. She gasped, and the gasp turned into a sob, and the sob turned into something she couldn't control. 18 months of cold. 18 months of doors closing and faces turning away, and the constant grinding knowledge that she was unwanted everywhere she went. And now, warmth. Now a fire crackling in a stone fireplace, and children shedding snowy coats, and a man setting her down in a chair like she was something precious instead of something discarded. "Don't fight it." Samuel's voice was gruff, but not unkind. "Crying's just the body's way of thawing out. I'm not crying. Sure you ain't. He turned to his children. Grace, get water warming on the stove. Not hot, just warm. Rosie, find the wool blankets in the cedar chest. Billy. The little boy had already moved. While his father was giving orders, Billy had crossed the room, climbed up on the chair beside Eleanor, and pressed himself against her side. His bear was wedged between them, its button eyes staring up at her.
Samuel stopped mid-sentence. Papa.
Grace's voice was barely a whisper.
Papa, he's touching her.
I see that.
He hasn't touched anyone but you since Mama died.
I know. Eleanor looked down at the child curled against her. His eyes were closed now, his breathing slow and even, like he'd found something he'd been looking for and could finally rest.
I don't understand, she said.
Neither do I. Samuel's voice was rough. But I've learned not to question what my children know. They've got instincts I can't explain, especially Billy. Rosie appeared with an armful of blankets, dumping them on the floor beside Eleanor's chair.
Billy likes you. That's good. Billy doesn't like anyone. Last time someone came to visit, he hid in the barn for 3 hours.
Who visited?
A lady from town. She said she wanted to help Papa with the children.
Rosie's nose wrinkled.
She smelled like old flowers, and she kept trying to touch my hair. I didn't like her either.
Rosie, Samuel's warning tone. Well, I didn't, and Billy ran away, and Grace told her to leave, and she got mad, and said we were all savages who needed a firm hand. Rosie crossed her arms. Papa told her to get off his property and never come back. Your papa sounds like he has good judgment. He does, for a papa. Rosie grinned, gap-toothed and bright. You hungry? We got beans. Papa burns everything, but beans are hard to burn because they're already mushy. Rosie, Grace emerged from the kitchen, carrying a basin of water and clean cloths. Let her breathe. I'm just being friendly. You're being a lot. Grace set the basin down beside Eleanor's chair, her movements careful and precise. Miss Eleanor, I need to check your hands and feet. Frostbite can get bad if we don't catch it early. Mama taught me what to look for. Your mama taught you medicine? Mama taught me everything. Grace's voice wavered slightly, then steadied. She said I'd need to know someday. She was right. Eleanor held out her hands, let the girl examine her fingers, her wrists, the pale skin that was slowly returning to something closer to normal color. Grace's touch was gentle but sure, the touch of someone who'd had to grow up too fast. No frostbite, Grace announced. Some damage, but it'll heal. Your feet? Eleanor let her pull off the ruined boots, let her examine toes that were red and angry, but not black, not dead. You're lucky, Grace said. Another hour out there, and it would have been different. I know. So why'd you do it? Walk into a blizzard, I mean. There's a town 3 miles back. They got a hotel, a boarding house. Why didn't you stop? Eleanor met the girl's eyes, saw the intelligence there, the wariness, the desperate need to understand. They wouldn't have me. Why not? Grace, Samuel's voice from across the room. That's enough questions. It's all right. Eleanor took a breath.
They wouldn't have me because I'm the kind of woman no one wants to have. No references, no family, no proof that I'm worth the trouble it takes to help me. I walked into that town, and I saw how they looked at me, and I knew. I knew asking would just mean hearing no. So I kept walking. That's stupid, Rosie's voice, blunt and honest. You almost died because you were scared of someone saying no? Rosie! It's not stupid. Eleanor's voice was soft. It's what happens when you've heard no so many times you can't stand to hear it again. It's what happens when every person who's supposed to help decides you're not worth helping. After a while, you stop asking. You stop expecting anything good. You just
Keep walking." The room was quiet. Then Billy moved again. His small hand crept out from under the blanket and found Eleanor's. He didn't squeeze, didn't pull, just held on. Like he was anchoring her to something. Or like he needed an anchor himself. "Supper." Samuel's voice was gruff, too loud, breaking the silence before it could become unbearable. "Grace, can you finish heating those beans? Rosie, set the table. 4 places." "5 places, Papa." "What?" "There's 5 of us now. You, me, Grace, Billy, and Miss Eleanor. That's 5. Samuel looked at his youngest daughter, then at Eleanor, with Billy still holding her hand, then at Grace, watching everything with those 2 old eyes. 5 places, he agreed. They ate at a scarred wooden table, beans and cornbread that was indeed burned on the bottom, and coffee that was strong enough to strip paint. Billy refused to leave Eleanor's side, dragging his chair close enough that their arms touched, eating with one hand while the other stayed wrapped around his bear. "He's never done this," Grace said quietly, watching her brother. "Not with anyone. I don't know why he's doing it with me." "Maybe he sees something," Samuel's voice was thoughtful. "Kids see things adults miss, especially Billy." Before he stopped talking, he used to say things that didn't make sense until later. Martha called it his gift. "What kind of things?" "He told us Mama was going to heaven 3 days before she died." Rosie's voice was matter-of-fact. "He said the angels were coming and Mama was going to fly with them. We didn't understand until—" her voice caught, "until she was gone." Eleanor's hand tightened around Billy's. "I'm so sorry." "Everybody keeps saying that." Grace pushed her beans around her plate. "Sorry doesn't change anything. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't make Papa smile anymore, or make Billy talk, or make the town stop treating us like we're nothing." "You're not nothing. Tell that to Judge Wade." Grace's voice was bitter. "He came here 6 months ago. Said Papa was unfit to raise children alone. Said we needed a proper mother, a proper home, proper guidance. Said if Papa didn't find a suitable wife, he'd have us taken away." Eleanor went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the blizzard. "He can't do that." "He can do whatever he wants. He's the judge. He makes the rules." Grace finally looked up, met Eleanor's eyes. "That's why the ladies keep coming. That's why Papa keeps sending them away. They're not here because they want us. They're here because Wade sends them. To spy, to report back, to find reasons to take us from Papa." "Grace," Samuel's voice was sharp. "That's enough." "She should know. If she's going to stay, she should know what she's walking into." "I never said I was staying." "Billy's holding your hand. Billy doesn't hold anyone's hand. Billy didn't even hold Mama's hand, and he loved Mama more than anyone." Grace's voice broke slightly. "If Billy thinks you should stay, maybe you should listen to him. He knows things." The table fell silent. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. Inside, the fire crackled and popped, and somewhere a shutter banged against its frame, and Eleanor sat in a burned, cornbread-scented kitchen, holding the hand of a silent child who hadn't touched a stranger in 18 months. "I'll stay until the storm passes," she said finally. After that, we'll see." Samuel stood, started gathering plates. "Grace, take your sister up to bed. I'll deal with the dishes." "I can help," Eleanor said. "You can rest. You almost died 3 hours ago." "I've almost died before. I'm still here." Something flickered in Samuel's eyes. Recognition, maybe. The look of someone who understood exactly what it meant to keep going when the world said stop. "Fine. You dry, I'll wash." They worked in silence while the children went upstairs. Eleanor could hear Rosie's chatter fading as they climbed, could hear Grace's patient responses, could hear the creak of floorboards as they settled into their rooms. Billy was the last to go.
He'd refused to leave Eleanor until Samuel physically carried him. And even then, his eyes stayed on her until his father rounded the corner at the top of the stairs. "He's different," Eleanor said when Samuel came back down. "He's grieving. Has been since the day he was born."
Samuel plunged his hands into the wash water. "Doc says there's nothing wrong with him physically. Says his silence is psychological, whatever that means."
"It means his pain is too big for words."
Samuel stopped washing, looked at her. "You talk like you know something about that."
"I do."
"Want to tell me?"
"No."
"Fair enough." He went back to the dishes. "I don't expect your secrets, Miss Prescott. Every person's got a right to their own history. But I'll tell you this. Whatever happened to you, whoever hurt you, however you ended up dying in my back 40, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is what you do now."
"And if what I do now is leave in the morning?"
"Then you leave.
No judgment, no questions, no hard feelings. But if what you do is stay," he set down the plate, turned to face her fully. "If you stay, you should know what you're walking into. Wade wants my land, wants my children, wants everything I've built destroyed because I won't bow to him. Anyone who stands with me becomes a target. Anyone who helps me gets hurt." "I'm already hurt."
"Then you know what it costs."
"I know."
Samuel nodded slowly. "Storm won't let up till noon tomorrow at earliest. Get some sleep. Grace's room is at the end of the hall. She'll bunk with Rosie tonight."
"I can't take a child's room."
"You can, and you will." Grace insisted. A ghost of a smile crossed his weathered face. She's got opinions about things. Gets that from her mother. Eleanor dried the last dish and set it on the stack. Her hands were steadier now, her body warming, but inside something was still frozen, still waiting to see if this was real or just another dream that would dissolve come morning.
"Mr. Thornton."
"Sam."
"Sam." She met his eyes. "Why are you doing this? Really? And don't tell me it's because your kids found me. There's more to it than that."
He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. 18 months ago, my wife died in that room upstairs. She held my hand, and she made me promise 3 things. Take care of the children. Don't sell the land. And don't let the world make me hard. He looked at the ceiling, at the room where Martha Thornton had taken her last breath. I've kept 2 of those promises. The third one's been harder. Every day someone in this town shows me a new way to hate, and every day I feel myself getting closer to hating back.
"And me? How do I fit into that?"
You don't. That's the point. He lowered his eyes to hers. You needed help. I could give it. That's all there is to it. No angle, no scheme, no expectations.
Just one person helping another, because that's what Martha would have done.
Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back.
"Your wife sounds like she was a remarkable woman."
She was. And I'm trying every day to be half as good as she was. Most days I fail. He picked up a lamp from the counter. Come on, I'll show you to your room. The room was small but clean. A narrow bed with a quilt that smelled like lavender. A window with heavy curtains to keep out the cold. A washstand with a basin and pitcher. A mirror that showed Eleanor exactly how terrible she looked. There's a nightgown in the trunk, Samuel said from the doorway. Belonged to Martha. Grace wears them sometimes when she misses her mama. She said you should have one tonight.
"I can't."
You can. Grace said so, and Grace doesn't offer things she doesn't mean. He set the lamp on the nightstand. Breakfast's at 6. You don't have to join us if you're not up to it.
I'll be there.
All right. He paused at the door.
Miss Prescott? Eleanor, please. Eleanor. He said her name like he was learning it. Billy's room is across the hall. If you hear him crying in the night, you don't have to do anything. I always hear him. I always go. Does he cry often? Every night. Nightmares about things he can't tell us because he won't talk. Samuel's voice was heavy. I sit with him until he falls back asleep. Sometimes that takes 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes hours. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's alive. That's more than I can say for his mama. Samuel stepped into the hallway. Good night, Eleanor. Good night, Sam. He pulled the door closed, and Eleanor was alone. She stood in the middle of the room for a long moment, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall, listening to the wind batter the windows, listening to the house settle and creak around her. Then she moved to the trunk, opened it, found the nightgown Samuel had mentioned, soft cotton, worn soft from washing, with tiny flowers embroidered around the collar. Martha's hands had worn this. Martha's body had filled it. Martha's children still remembered the way she smelled when she wore it. Eleanor changed slowly, her cold, stiff fingers fumbling with buttons. The nightgown was too big, but it was warm, and it smelled like lavender and something else. Something that might have been hope if Eleanor still believed in such things. She climbed into bed, pulled the quilt up to her chin, and stared at the ceiling. In the morning the storm would pass. In the morning she would have to decide. Keep walking into the white, into the endless string of towns that didn't want her. Or stay here, in this house full of grief and stubborn children, and the man who helped strangers because his dead wife would have wanted him to. She should leave. Every sensible part of her said so. Getting attached was dangerous. Hoping was dangerous. Believing that this could be real, that these people might actually want her, that was the most dangerous thing of all. But Billy's hand in hers, Grace's tears on her shoulder, Rosie's warmth against her side, Samuel's quiet, practical kindness. She'd been empty for so long, running on nothing but stubbornness and fear, and now, for the first time in 18 months, something inside her was starting to thaw. A sound pulled her from her thoughts. Small footsteps in the hallway. The creak of a door opening. Eleanor sat up. Billy stood in the doorway, his bear clutched to his chest, his feet bare on the cold floor, his eyes fixed on her face. "Billy? What's wrong?" He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. He hadn't spoken in 18 months. But he moved, crossed the room, climbed up onto the bed, and burrowed under the covers beside her. His small body was cold, shivering, but he pressed close anyway, his bear wedged between them. "Billy, your papa—" He shook his head. One sharp movement. Then he reached up and took her hand, the same way he had downstairs, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting underneath him. Eleanor's heart cracked. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I've got you." She lay back down, Billy curled against her side, and listened to his breathing slowly even out. The storm raged outside. The house creaked and groaned, and somewhere down the hall she heard Samuel's door open, heard his footsteps pause, heard his breath catch when he looked into Billy's empty room. Then his footsteps again, coming closer, stopping at her door. She waited for him to knock, to demand his son back, to tell her she'd crossed a line. Instead, she heard a sound she didn't expect. A sigh. Deep, shaky, full of something that might have been relief. Then his footsteps again,
retreating, his door closing.
Eleanor stared at the ceiling, Billy's warmth against her side, and felt the last frozen piece inside her begin to crack. Maybe the storm wouldn't pass tomorrow. Maybe it would rage for days. And maybe, just maybe, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Eleanor woke to silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of snow. The kind that swallowed sound, that wrapped the world in white and made everything feel suspended, waiting. Billy was still pressed against her side, his bear clutched tight, his breathing slow and even. She didn't move, didn't want to wake him. Just lay there, listening to the quiet, and wondering when the last time was that she'd woken up feeling warm. Footsteps in the hallway, light ones. Grace appeared in the doorway, already dressed, her wheat-colored braids pulled back tight. She stopped when she saw Billy. He stayed the whole night? Yes. Grace's eyes went bright. She pressed her hand to her mouth, turned away. Grace? He hasn't slept through the night since Mama died. The words came out muffled, thick. Papa sits with him every single night, sometimes for hours, and he just stayed with you, all night. Eleanor didn't know what to say. The weight of what that meant pressed down on her chest. I didn't do anything. You didn't have to. Grace turned back, and her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. That's the point. You just let him be there. Most people try too hard. They talk too much. They touch too much. They want him to be better so bad they make him worse. You just let him be. He needed to be held. I know what that feels like. Grace studied her for a long moment. Breakfast is almost ready. Papa sent me to wake Billy, but I don't want to disturb him. I'll bring him down when he wakes. Okay. Grace hesitated at the door. Miss Eleanor? Yes? I'm glad we found you in the snow. Then she was gone, her footsteps fading down the stairs. Billy stirred against Eleanor's side. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then sharpening when they found her face. He didn't speak. Of course he didn't. But something in his expression shifted, a softening that might have been relief. Good morning, Eleanor said softly. He blinked at her. Your papa's making breakfast. Are you hungry? A small nod. Then let's go down together. She helped him out of bed, found his socks and shoes, let him hold her hand as they walked down the stairs. The smell of coffee and bacon hit her halfway down, and her stomach twisted with a hunger she'd been ignoring for days. Samuel stood at the stove, his back to them, spatula in hand. He turned when he heard their footsteps, and his eyes went immediately to Billy's hand in Eleanor's. Morning, he said. His voice was rough, careful. Morning. Sleep all right? Better than I have in months. Samuel's gaze moved to Billy. Something passed across his face. Pain, maybe. Or hope. Hard to tell which. Billy, come help Papa with the eggs. The boy didn't move. His hand tightened around Eleanor's. Samuel's jaw worked. Billy, come on, son. Still nothing. Billy pressed closer to Eleanor's side. Sam, Eleanor kept her voice gentle. Maybe let him be for now. He needs to eat. He will. Just give him a minute. Samuel's eyes met hers. She saw the struggle there. The father who wanted his son back. The man who couldn't understand why his child had chosen a stranger over him. Fine. He turned back to the stove. Breakfast's ready when you are. They ate in something close to silence. Rosie tried to fill it with chatter about the snow, and how deep it was, and how maybe they could build a snow fort later. But even she eventually ran out of words. Grace watched everyone with those two old eyes. Samuel ate mechanically, his attention on Billy,
who sat so close to Eleanor their shoulders touched. "Storm's letting up," Samuel said finally.
"Should be clear by afternoon." Eleanor set down her fork. "Then I should go." Three voices spoke at once. "No," Rosie. "Miss Eleanor," Grace. "Wait," Samuel. Billy didn't say anything, but his hand found hers under the table and held on. "I can't stay," Eleanor said. "I've imposed enough." "You haven't imposed." Samuel's voice was firm. "You've helped." "By doing what? Sleeping?" "By being there when my son needed someone." Samuel set down his coffee cup, met her eyes directly. "Eleanor, Billy hasn't slept through the night in 18 months. Last night he slept. With you. That's not nothing." "It doesn't mean I should stay." "Why not?" The question hung in the air. Eleanor felt every eye on her. Felt Billy's small hand gripping hers like she was the only solid thing in his world. "Because I bring trouble," she said finally. "Wherever I go, whatever I do, trouble follows. You've got enough problems without adding mine." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that ruins lives." Samuel leaned back in his chair. "Miss Prescott, I've been fighting a corrupt judge for 2 years. My wife died in childbirth while the town doctor refused to come because Wade told him not to. My children can't go to school. My neighbors won't speak to me. If you think your trouble is worse than that, I'd like to hear about it." Eleanor's hands trembled. She pulled them into her lap where no one could see. "I was a teacher. In Boston. At a school for young ladies." "What happened?" "The school's benefactor happened." Her voice went flat. "James Whitmore. Rich, powerful, married. He decided he wanted me. I said no. He didn't like that." Grace's fork clattered against her plate. Rosie's eyes went wide. "Girls," Samuel said quietly, "go upstairs." "But Papa—" "Now." Grace took Rosie's hand and led her toward the stairs. Billy didn't move. His grip on Eleanor's hand tightened. "Billy, go with your sisters." The boy shook his head. One sharp movement. "Billy." "Let him stay." Eleanor's voice was tired. "He's going to find out eventually. They all will." Samuel studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Tell me." So she did. She told him about the night James Whitmore cornered her in his study, about the way he'd locked the door, about the things he'd said, about the way she'd fought back. She told him about the candlestick she'd grabbed, the blood on Whitmore's forehead, the screaming that brought servants running. She told him about the accusations. Theft, they'd said. She'd tried to steal a valuable pendant. When Whitmore caught her, she'd attacked him. That was the story he told. That was the story everyone believed. "I had nothing," Eleanor said. "No family, no money, no power. He had everything. When he said I was a thief and a liar, who do you think people believed?" Samuel's face was stone. "I lost my position. I was blacklisted from every school in Boston. The pendant he said I stole was worth more than I'd make in 10 years. The police wanted to arrest me, but Whitmore said he'd show mercy. Said he wouldn't press charges if I just disappeared." Her laugh was bitter. "So, I disappeared. I've been disappearing ever since." 18 months. 18 months of walking. 18 months of doors closing, of people looking at me like I was dirt, of trying to find work and being turned away because somehow the rumors always got there first. Whitmore made sure of it, made sure everyone knew what I supposedly was. And the scars? Samuel's eyes moved to her wrists. Those didn't come from a candlestick. Eleanor hesitated. This part was harder. The night I tried to leave Boston, Whitmore found out where I was staying. He sent men.
She swallowed. They wanted to make sure I understood what happened to women who said no to men like him. They held my wrists over a lamp, said it was a reminder of what fire does to things that don't know their place. Billy made a sound, small, wounded. He pressed his face against Eleanor's arm. I got away, she continued. Jumped out a window, ran until I couldn't run anymore. That was the last time I stayed in one place longer than a week. I learned to keep moving, learned that staying meant being found. Samuel was quiet for a long time. And now? He finally asked. You think Whitmore's still looking? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe he's forgotten about me. Maybe he's moved on to some other woman who dared to say no. Eleanor met his eyes. But I can't be sure, and that's why I can't stay. If he finds me here, if he finds out about you and your children, then I'll deal with him. You don't understand. He's powerful. He's got money, connections, and I've got a gun, a badge I used to wear, and 3 children who need protecting. Samuel's voice was hard. I'm not afraid of powerful men, Eleanor. I spent 15 years bringing them to justice. Whitmore's got reach, I'm sure, but his reach don't extend to Montana territory. Not yet. You don't know that. I know that running hasn't kept you safe. I know that hiding hasn't worked. And I know that my son is holding your hand like you're the only thing keeping him from drowning. Samuel leaned forward. Stay. At least until the storm passes proper. A few more days. That's all I'm asking. And then? Then we'll see. Those words again, the same ones he'd said last night. We'll see. Like the future was something that could be negotiated, one day at a time. Eleanor looked down at Billy. His eyes were closed now, his breathing slow, his small body pressed against her side like she was warmth itself. A few more days, she said quietly. Samuel nodded. A few more days. The storm didn't pass that afternoon. It roared back with a vengeance. Snow piling against windows, wind shrieking around corners, the whole world disappearing into white. Samuel went out twice to check on the animals, coming back each time covered in snow and cursing under his breath. Never seen it this bad, he said, stamping his boots by the door. Could be another week before it lets up proper. Eleanor helped where she could. She cooked, discovering that the kitchen was well stocked, if poorly organized. She cleaned, finding satisfaction in the simple work. She mended clothes that had been piling up since Martha died, her needle moving through fabric with practiced ease. Grace watched her work with undisguised fascination. You sew good. My mother taught me, before she died. Was she a teacher too? No, she was a seamstress. Made dresses for fine ladies in Philadelphia. Eleanor snipped a thread. She always said clothes were armor, that if you looked proper, people treated you proper. Did it work? Sometimes, not always. Grace was quiet for a moment. Mama used to sew. She made all our clothes. Papa can't sew at all. He tried once and Rosie's dress came out with 3 armholes. Eleanor bit back a smile. 3 armholes? He said it was in case she grew an extra arm. Grace's lips twitched. Mama laughed so hard she cried. I remember because she was already sick by then, and it was the last time I heard her really laugh. The memory hung between them. Eleanor set down her needle. Tell me about her, your mama. Why? Because you want to. I can see it in your face. You've got stories you want to tell, but no one to tell them to. Grace's eyes went bright. Papa doesn't like talking about her. It makes him sad. What about your sister, your brother? Rosie was only 4 when Mama died. She remembers some things, but not everything. And Billy,
Grace's voice dropped. Billy never knew her at all. He was born, and she was gone. He doesn't have any memories of her, just what we tell him. That must be hard. For all of you. It is. Grace pulled her knees up to her chest. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who really remembers her. The way she smelled, the songs she sang, the stories she told. And it's like if I forget, she'll really be gone. So I try to remember everything, every single thing. But it's hard because new memories keep pushing out the old ones, and I'm scared one day I'll wake up and I won't remember her face anymore. Eleanor reached out, touched Grace's knee. That won't happen. How do you know? Because the people we love leave marks on us. Invisible ones. You might forget the exact shape of her nose or the precise color of her eyes, but you'll never forget how she made you feel. That stays forever. Grace stared at her. You sound like you've lost someone too. I have. My mother, my father, everyone I ever loved. Eleanor picked up her needle again. But I still carry them with me. In the way I sew, because my mother taught me. In the way I stand up for myself, because my father said a person's dignity was worth more than safety. In all the little things that make me who I am. Do you miss them? Every day. But missing them means I loved them, and loving them was worth the pain of losing them. Grace unfolded slowly, her arms coming down from around her knees. Miss Eleanor? Yes? I'm glad Billy found you. Eleanor paused. I thought you found me. I found you in the snow, but Billy found you first. Grace's voice was quiet. He was the one who saw you through the wagon cover. He pointed, and I looked, and there you were. Papa thinks I saw you, but it was Billy. He always sees things before everyone else. Why didn't he say anything? Because he doesn't talk. But he pointed. That's more than he's done in months. Grace stood. He saw you, Miss Eleanor, and he decided you belonged with us. That's why he won't let you go. She left before Eleanor could respond. That night, Billy came to her room again. This time, Eleanor was expecting him. She heard his footsteps in the hall, heard her door creak open, felt him climb onto the bed and burrow under the covers. Nightmares? She whispered. He shook his head. Just wanted company? A small nod. She pulled him close, let him press his face against her shoulder, let his breathing slow and even out. Outside, the storm still raged. Inside, everything was warm. You know, Eleanor said softly, I used to think being alone was safer, easier. No one to disappoint, no one to hurt, no one to leave. Just me and the road and whatever came next. Billy didn't respond, but he tilted his head slightly, like he was listening. But being alone isn't safe. It's just lonely. And lonely is its own kind of danger. It makes you forget that you matter. Makes you think that if you disappeared, no one would notice. She stroked his hair. You noticed me, Billy. You saw me in the snow, and you pointed, and you made your family stop. You saved my life. Do you understand that? You saved me. His hand crept up, found hers. And now I'm here. And I don't know what happens next, or how long I'll stay, or what the future looks like. But I know that right now, in this moment, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. With you. Billy's grip tightened, and then, so soft she almost missed it, a sound. Mama? Eleanor's heart stopped. Billy? Nothing. His breathing had evened out. He was asleep. But she'd heard it. She knew she'd heard it. One word, whispered into the dark. Mama. She didn't sleep the rest of the night, just lay there, holding the small boy who'd called her something she'd never thought she'd be,
and felt the last frozen piece inside her, finally, completely, break. Morning came gray and cold. Eleanor was in the kitchen before anyone else, the stove lit, coffee brewing, biscuits rising in the oven. Her hands moved automatically, her mind somewhere else entirely. Mama. He'd called her Mama. Samuel came down first, stopping in the doorway when he saw her. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." He studied her face. "Something happen?" Eleanor hesitated. She should tell him, should explain what Billy had said, what it meant, what it might mean for all of them. But the word felt too precious to share, too fragile, like if she spoke it aloud, it might disappear. "Just restless," she said. Samuel nodded slowly. He didn't believe her. She could see it in his eyes. But he didn't push. "Coffee smells good." "It's ready, and there's biscuits. Should be done in a few minutes." He poured himself a cup, leaned against the counter. The silence between them was comfortable now. Different from yesterday, from the first night. Something had shifted. "Eleanor." "Yes?" "What Grace told you yesterday, about Judge Wade threatening to take the children." He stared into his coffee. "That wasn't just an empty threat." "I figured." "He's serious. He's got lawyers, papers, all the official machinery on his side. Says a widower can't properly raise 3 children alone. Says they need a mother's influence, a stable home, the guidance of a proper family." Samuel's jaw tightened. "What he really wants is my land. The children are just leverage." "What's he asking you to do?" "Sell him the farm for 1/10 of what it's worth. Sign over the deed and leave the territory. That's his price for leaving us alone." "And if you don't?" "Then he finds a reason to take my kids. Plants evidence, bribes witnesses, whatever it takes. He's done it before. The Henderson family, 2 years ago. They wouldn't sell either. Wade had the mother declared unfit, the father arrested on false charges. Their children ended up in an orphanage in Helena, while the parents fought to get them back. Did they win? They got the children back eventually, but by then, the farm was gone. Sold at auction for pennies. Wade bought it through a middleman. Samuel's voice was bitter. That's how he operates. He doesn't need to beat you. He just needs to wear you down until you've got nothing left to fight with. Eleanor thought about James Whitmore. Different man, same tactics. Power used as a weapon against anyone who wouldn't bend. Is that why you won't sell? Pride? Partly. Samuel set down his cup. But mostly, it's because this land is all I have left of Martha. She's buried out back, under the big oak. The girls plant flowers on her grave every spring. If I sell, if I leave, I'm leaving her behind. And I can't do that. Not for Wade, not for anyone. Even if it costs you your children? Samuel's eyes met hers. It won't. I won't let it. How? You said yourself he's got all the power. He's got official power, but there's other kinds. Samuel pushed off the counter. I was a marshal for 15 years. I've still got friends in the territorial government. People who owe me favors. People who don't like Wade any more than I do. I've been building my case, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. Waiting for what? For Wade to make a mistake, to push too hard, move too fast, leave himself exposed. Samuel's smile was grim. Men like him always do, eventually. They get arrogant. They think they're untouchable. And then they slip. And if he doesn't slip? If he moves against you first? Then I fight with whatever I've got. The biscuits were ready. Eleanor pulled them from the oven, set them on a cooling rack. Her mind was racing. Sam? Yeah? What if I could help? He went still. Help how? I was a teacher for 8 years. I know how to keep records, write reports, document evidence.
I know the law, at least the parts that protect children. And I know how men like Wade think, how they operate. You're talking about getting involved. I'm already involved. Billy made sure of that the moment he pointed at me in the snow. She turned to face him. I've spent 18 months running from one powerful man. I'm tired of running. If I'm going to stay, if I'm going to be part of this family, then I want to fight, not hide. Samuel studied her for a long moment. You understand what you're offering. If Wade finds out you're helping me, he'll come after you too. Dig into your past, find out about Whitmore, use it against you. Let him try. Eleanor, I've already lost everything, Sam. My career, my reputation, my home, everything except my life. And that was almost gone too until your children found me. What more can he take? He can take your safety, your peace, whatever chance you have at starting over. I don't want to start over. The words came out fiercer than she intended. I want to fight back. I want to stand up to the men who think they can destroy anyone who won't bow to them. I want to matter again. Samuel was quiet. The coffee grew cold in his cup. The biscuits cooled on the rack. Then he nodded. All right. All right? If you want to fight, I won't stop you. But we do it smart. We do it careful. And we do it together. Eleanor felt something loosen in her chest. Something that had been wound tight for 18 months. Together, she agreed. The children came down for breakfast, Rosie bouncing with energy, Grace moving with her usual quiet grace, Billy trailing behind with his bear clutched tight. He went straight to Eleanor, not to Samuel, who was his father, not to his sisters, who'd cared for him his whole short life, to Eleanor, who'd known him for 2 days. He climbed into the chair beside her, pressed his shoulder against her arm, and looked up at her with those knowing eyes. Good morning, Billy, Eleanor said softly. He didn't answer, but his hand found hers under the table and held on. The storm broke on the 5th day. Eleanor stood at the window watching the clouds part, watching sunlight spill across the snow for the first time since she'd arrived. The world outside was white and blinding, drifts piled high against the barn, the fence posts buried, the road to town completely invisible. Beautiful, ain't it? She turned. Samuel stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee cup in hand, his eyes on the same view. It is. Martha loved mornings like this. She'd bundle up the girls and take 'em out to make snow angels. Said the fresh snow was like a blank page, all that white, waiting for someone to write on it. That's a lovely way to see it. She was a lovely woman. Samuel's voice was soft. I still expect to see her sometimes. Turn a corner and there she'll be, laughing at something one of the kids said. It's been 18 months, and I still reach for her in the middle of the night.
Eleanor didn't know what to say. She understood that kind of loss. The phantom presence of someone who should still be there.
The road should be passable by tomorrow,
Samuel continued.
I'll need to go into town for supplies. We're running low on flour, coffee, a few other things.
Do you want me to come with you?
No.
His answer was immediate.
Wade's got eyes everywhere. If he sees you with me, he'll start asking questions. Better if you stay here with the children.
And if someone comes while you're gone?
Then you don't answer the door. You don't let anyone in. You keep the children inside and you wait for me to get back.
Samuel's eyes met hers.
Can you do that?
Yes.
Good.
He turned to go, then stopped.
Eleanor.
Yes?
The children trust you. That's not nothing. That's everything.
He paused.
Don't make me regret trusting you too. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading toward the barn. Eleanor stayed at the window for a long time, watching the light spread across the snow, thinking about trust and how easily it could be broken.
The next morning, Samuel left before dawn. Eleanor stood on the porch, watching his wagon disappear down the newly cleared road. The children clustered around her. Grace held Rosie's hand. Billy pressed against Eleanor's side, his bear dangling from one fist. "Will Papa be okay?" Rosie asked. "He'll be fine. He's just going to get supplies." "What if Judge Wade sees him? What if he tries to hurt Papa?" "Your father can take care of himself." "But what if—" "Rosie." Grace's voice was sharp. "Stop. You're scaring Billy." Eleanor looked down. Billy's face was pale, his eyes too wide. His grip on her skirt had tightened until his knuckles were white. "Hey." She crouched down to his level. "Your Papa's coming back, I promise. He's just going to town, and he'll be home before supper, okay?" Billy stared at her. "I'm not going anywhere either. I'll be right here with you, all day. We can read stories, or play games, or whatever you want, but I'm not leaving." Something in his expression shifted. Not quite belief, but close. "Come inside," Eleanor said. "It's cold out here." The morning passed slowly. Eleanor kept the children busy with chores, with lessons, with anything that would distract them from worry. She discovered that Grace could read better than most adults, that Rosie had an alarming talent for finding trouble, and that Billy would do almost anything if Eleanor asked him to. "He never listens to anyone," Grace observed, watching her brother carry firewood from the pile by the door. "Papa asks him to do something, and he just stands there. You ask him, and he does it right away." Maybe he just needed someone new to listen to. Maybe. Grace was quiet for a moment.
"Miss Eleanor, yes? If you married Papa, would you stay forever?"
The question hit Eleanor like a physical blow.
"Grace, I'm not saying you should, I'm just asking."
The girl's eyes were steady.
"Because Papa's been alone for a long time, and we've been alone too, and it would be nice if someone stayed. Just once."
"Has he asked you about this?"
"No, Papa doesn't talk about things like that. But I see how he looks at you, and I see how Billy is with you, and I think—" Grace swallowed. "I think Mama would have liked you. I think she would have wanted someone like you to take care of us."
Eleanor's throat closed.
"I can't promise forever, Grace. I don't know what the future holds." "I know. I just wanted you to know that if you wanted to stay, we'd want you to stay too."
Grace stood abruptly.
"I'm going to check on Rosie. She's been too quiet."
She left before Eleanor could respond. Eleanor sat alone in the kitchen, Grace's words echoing in her head.
"If you married Papa, if you stayed forever."
If. She thought about Samuel, his quiet strength, his stubborn loyalty, the way he looked at his children like they were the only thing keeping him alive. She thought about Billy, who'd called her Mama in the dark. She thought about Grace, carrying too much responsibility for a 9-year-old. She thought about Rosie, all brightness and chaos and desperate need for attention. She thought about the life she'd lost in Boston, the life she'd been running from for 18 months. And she thought about what it might mean to stop running. The knock came just after noon. Eleanor froze. The children were upstairs, playing in their rooms. Samuel wasn't due back for hours. Another knock, louder this time. "Miss Prescott." A man's voice, cold, cultured, wrong. "I know you're in there. Open the door." Eleanor's blood turned to ice. She moved quickly, silently, up the stairs. Found Grace in her room, reading.
"Someone's at the door," Eleanor whispered. "Take your sister and brother and hide in the attic. Don't make a sound. Don't come out until I come get you or your father comes home."
Grace's face went pale, but she didn't argue.
"Who is it?" "I don't know, but I don't like it." "Miss Eleanor, go, now."
Grace ran. Eleanor heard her gathering the other children, heard their footsteps on the attic stairs, heard the door close. She went back downstairs. The knocking had stopped, but through the window she could see a man on the porch, tall, thin, wearing a black coat that looked too expensive for Montana. Behind him, 2 more men waited on horseback. Eleanor's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, forced them still. Then she opened the door. The man on the porch smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Miss Prescott, or should I say, Miss Moore. The names do get confusing, don't they? Eleanor's heart stopped. I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course you don't. The man pulled a piece of paper from his pocket.
Eleanor Prescott, also known as Eleanor Moore, wanted in Boston for theft and assault. There's a reward, you know, a substantial one. Mr. Whitmore is very eager to see you brought to justice. There is no justice, just his lies. Lies, truth, it hardly matters. What matters is the law, and the law says you're a criminal. Who are you? My name is Fletcher. I work for various interested parties. Currently, I work for Judge Cornelius Wade, who works for Mr. Whitmore, who very much wants you found. Fletcher's smile widened. Imagine my surprise when I learned that the woman who's been hiding here with Samuel Thornton is the very woman half of Boston has been looking for. Eleanor's mind raced. Wade and Whitmore. Connected. Of course they were. Men like that always found each other. What do you want? Right now? Just to talk. To make you an offer. Fletcher stepped closer. Leave, tonight, before Thornton gets back. Walk away from this farm, these children, this pathetic attempt at a new life. Do that, and I'll tell Mr. Whitmore I couldn't find you. You'll have a head start, a chance to disappear again. And if I don't, then I'll arrest you on the spot. You'll be transported back to Boston in chains, and when you get there, Mr. Whitmore will be waiting. Fletcher's voice dropped. He's not a forgiving man, Miss Prescott. The things he has planned for you, well, let's just say you won't enjoy them. Eleanor's legs were weak. Her whole body was shaking now, and she couldn't stop it. Why give me a choice? Why not just arrest me now? Because Judge Wade doesn't want a scene. Arresting you here, in Thornton's house, would raise questions. People might start wondering why Wade is so interested in a schoolteacher from Boston. They might start connecting dots that should stay unconnected. Fletcher shrugged. It's cleaner if you just vanish. Walk away.
Let Thornton think you couldn't handle the life. Everyone wins.
Everyone except me.
You're a fugitive, Miss Prescott. You don't get to win.
Eleanor thought about the children hiding in the attic, about Billy, who'd called her Mama, about Grace, who'd asked if she would stay forever, about Samuel, who'd trusted her. No. Fletcher blinked. I'm sorry? No, I'm not leaving. I'm not running. And I'm not letting you or Wade or Whitmore destroy these people to get to me. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice. Eleanor's voice was steady now, steadier than she felt. You want to arrest me? Do it. Drag me back to Boston in chains. Let the whole territory see what kind of man Wade really is. Let them see him working with a monster like Whitmore. Let them see what happens to women who say no to powerful men. Fletcher's smile faded. You're bluffing. Am I? I've spent 18 months with nothing left to lose.
You think I'm afraid of chains?
I'm afraid of what happens if I run. I'm afraid of leaving 3 children who need me. I'm afraid of becoming the person Whitmore always said I was, someone who abandons people when things get hard. She stepped forward, and Fletcher actually stepped back. So do your worst. Arrest me. Take me away. But know this, I won't go quietly. I'll scream your name and Wade's name and Whitmore's name to anyone who'll listen. I'll tell everyone exactly what kind of men you work for. And by the time you get me back to Boston, everyone in this territory will know the truth." Fletcher stared at her. "You're insane." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done being afraid." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Fletcher laughed. A cold, hollow sound. "You've got spine, I'll give you that. More than most." He tucked the paper back in his pocket. "I'll tell Wade you refused. He won't be happy." "I don't care about his happiness." "You should."
He's going to come after you now. After Thornton. After those children. He's going to make your lives very, very difficult.
"Let him try." Fletcher shook his head. "Brave words. We'll see how brave you are when it all comes crashing down." He turned and walked back to his horse. Mounted. Looked at her one more time. "This isn't over, Miss Prescott." "I know." Then he was gone, his men following, their horses' hooves muffled by the snow. Eleanor watched until they disappeared over the hill. Then her legs gave out. She sank to the floor, her back against the door, and let herself shake. Let the terror she'd been holding back pour out in gasping breaths and silent tears. She'd done it. She'd stood up to them. But Fletcher was right. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Footsteps on the stairs. Grace appeared, her face white. "They're gone?" "They're gone." "Who were they? What did they want?" Eleanor looked at the girl. This child who'd already lost so much. This child who was about to lose more. "Trouble," she said. "The kind I told your father about." "The man from Boston? The one who hurt you?" "He's connected to Judge Wade. They're working together." Grace absorbed this. "What does that mean?" "It means things are going to get harder. It means your father's fight just got a lot more complicated." Eleanor pushed herself to her feet. "It means I have to tell him the truth. All of it. Tonight." "Are you going to leave?" The question hung in the air. Eleanor thought about running, about disappearing again, about taking her trouble somewhere far away where it couldn't hurt these children. But then she thought about Billy, hiding in the attic with his bear, about Rosie, probably terrified but trying not to show it, about Grace, standing here asking if she was going to be abandoned again. "No," Eleanor said. "I'm not going to leave." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Promise?" Eleanor crouched down, took the girl's hands in hers. "I promise. Whatever happens, whatever comes, I'm staying. We're going to face this together. All of us. As a family." Grace threw her arms around Eleanor's neck. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew you were the one." "The one what?" "The one we were waiting for. The one Mama promised would come." Eleanor's heart cracked. "Your Mama promised that?" "Before she died. She told me someone would come. Someone who needed us as much as we needed her. She said I'd know her when I saw her." Grace pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I saw you in the snow. I knew." Eleanor couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "Let's get your brother and sister," she finally managed. "They must be scared." "Billy wasn't scared. He said you'd make the bad men go away." "He said that?" "He nodded when I asked. That's almost the same thing." Grace took her hand. "Come on. Rosie's probably eaten all the emergency candy by now." They climbed the stairs together, and when they opened the attic door, when Rosie tumbled out complaining about the dark, and Billy came straight to Eleanor and pressed his face against her stomach, when 3 children held onto her like she was the only solid thing in their world, Eleanor made a decision. She was done running, done hiding, done being the victim. Fletcher had said this wasn't over. He was right. But he'd made a mistake. He'd given her something to fight for. And Eleanor Prescott, who'd survived fire and lies and 18 months of walking, who'd been found dying in the snow by 3 children who needed a mother, wasn't going to let anyone take that away. Not Wade, not Whitmore, not anyone. She held the children close and waited for Samuel to come home. Samuel came home at dusk. Eleanor heard the wagon before she saw it, the creak of wheels on frozen ground, the snort of horses eager for their barn.
She'd been waiting by the window for hours, the children fed and settled, her hands steady even though her heart wasn't. He knew something was wrong the moment he walked through the door. What happened? Eleanor didn't waste time. A man came, called himself Fletcher. He works for Wade. Samuel's face went hard. What did he want? Me. She told him everything. About Whitmore's connection to Wade, about the reward, about Fletcher's offer and her refusal. She told him while standing in the kitchen with the fire crackling behind her and the children sleeping upstairs, and the weight of 18 months of running finally off her shoulders. When she finished, Samuel was quiet. Too quiet. Sam? You should have told me. I did tell you. I told you about Whitmore, about Boston. You didn't tell me there was a reward. You didn't tell me men were actively hunting you. His voice was controlled, but she could hear the anger underneath. You let me bring you into my home, near my children, without telling me the full truth. Would you have helped me if I had? That's not the point. It's exactly the point, Eleanor's voice rose. Every time I've told someone the truth, they've turned me away. Every single time. So yes, I held back. I was scared. I'm still scared. But I'm not lying to you now. I'm standing here telling you everything because you deserve to know, and because I'm done running. Samuel stared at her. Fletcher gave you a chance to leave, to disappear. Why didn't you take it? Because of them, Eleanor gestured toward the stairs. Because Billy calls me Mama in his sleep. Because Grace asked if I would stay forever. Because Rosie told me I smell like snow and cookies, and that's apparently a good thing. Her voice cracked. Because for the first time in 18 months, I have something worth fighting for. And I'm not going to let Wade or Whitmore or anyone else take that away. Samuel's jaw worked. His hands flexed at his sides. You understand what this means. Wade knows about you now. He's got leverage. He can use you against me, against the children. I know. He's going to come at us with everything he's got. I know that too. And you're still staying? Yes. Samuel closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted in his expression. The anger was still there, but underneath it, something else. Something that looked almost like relief. Martha used to say that God sends us what we need, not what we want. I never believed her. He took a step closer. But she also said that the right person would find us when we were ready. Someone who needed us as much as we needed her. Grace told me. Did she also tell you that Martha described her, the woman who would come? Eleanor's breath caught. No. She said she'd be broken. She said she'd be running from something terrible. She said she'd be scared and stubborn and too proud to ask for help. Samuel's voice was rough. She said she'd have green eyes, and she said the children would know her before I did. Eleanor couldn't speak. I didn't believe that either. Thought it was just the fever talking, the sickness making her see things that weren't there. Samuel reached out, touched her cheek with calloused fingers. But Billy knew you. The moment he saw you in the snow,
He knew. And Grace knew. And Rosie, in her own loud way, she knew too. Sam, I should be angry. I am angry. You put my children at risk by not telling me everything. His thumb brushed her jaw. But I also know that scared people do scared things. And I know that you stood up to Fletcher when you could have run. You chose us over safety. That means something. What does it mean? It means we're in this together now. All the way. Samuel dropped his hand. Wade's going to move fast.
He knows I went to town today, knows I was away when Fletcher came. He's going to think you're vulnerable, that he can pressure you into leaving before I can protect you. What do we do? We get married. Eleanor blinked. What? Tomorrow. I'll ride to the next county, find a preacher who doesn't answer to Wade. We get married legal and proper, and suddenly you're not some stranger living in my house. You're my wife, mother to my children, protected by every law in this territory. That's not a reason to get married. It's the best reason. Samuel's eyes were steady on hers. I told you before, I'm not looking for love. I'm looking for partnership. Someone who'll stand with me when things get hard. Someone who'll fight for my children like they were her own. He paused. You already are her. The papers would just make it official. Eleanor's head was spinning. 24 hours ago, she'd been a fugitive, hiding from men who wanted to destroy her. Now she was being proposed to by a man who'd known her for less than a week. The children will be over the moon, especially Billy. Samuel almost smiled. He already thinks you're his mother. Might as well make it true. And you? What do you think? I think Martha was right. I think you're exactly who we've been waiting for. His voice softened. I think I could love you, Eleanor. Given time. Given the chance. I think we could build something real here, something that matters. Even knowing what I am? What I've done? You haven't done anything except survive. That's not a crime. That's a miracle. Samuel took her hand. Marry me. Let me protect you. Let us protect each other. Eleanor looked at their joined hands. His rough and scarred from labor. Hers rough and scarred from running. Yes. The word came out before she could stop it. Before she could think about all the reasons it was crazy. All the ways it could go wrong. All the danger she was bringing to his door. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Samuel's smile was slow and warm and real. The first real smile she'd seen from him. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow. He squeezed her hand once, then let go. Get some sleep. We've got a long ride ahead. He turned toward the stairs, then stopped. Eleanor. Yes? Thank you for choosing us. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading into the darkness above. Eleanor stood alone in the kitchen, her hand still warm where he'd held it, and felt something she hadn't felt in 18 months. Hope. They left before dawn. Samuel had arranged for old Ezekiel Cooper to stay with the children. The feed store owner arrived in the gray pre-morning light, his breath fogging in the cold, his rifle slung across his back. You sure about this, Sam? Sure as I've ever been about anything. Ezekiel looked at Eleanor. His eyes were sharp despite his age, assessing her with the practiced gaze of a man who'd seen too much to be fooled by appearances. She know what she's getting into? I know, Eleanor met his stare. I'm not running from it anymore. Something in Ezekiel's expression softened. Martha said you'd come. I didn't believe her. But here you are. Here I am. Then God bless you both. He shifted his rifle. I'll keep the young ones safe. You focus on making this legal. The children said goodbye on the porch. Rosie threw her arms around Eleanor's waist. Grace gave her a quick, fierce hug. And Billy, silent as always, pressed his bear into her hands. Billy, no, that's yours. He shook his head, pushed the bear more firmly into her grip. He wants you to have it, Grace said softly. For luck. He's never let anyone hold his bear. Not even Papa. Eleanor's throat closed. She crouched down, pulled Billy close. I'll bring it back, I promise. Billy nodded. Then, so soft she almost missed it, he spoke. Mama. One word, clear and certain. Eleanor couldn't stop the tears. I'll be back, baby. I promise. I'll always come back. She kissed his forehead, hugged each child one more time, and climbed into the wagon beside Samuel. Ready? He asked. She clutched Billy's bear to her chest. Ready. The ride to the next county took most of the day. They stopped once to rest the horses, eating cold biscuits and drinking water from a canteen. The silence between them was comfortable now, different from the tension of the first days. This was the silence of two people who'd made a decision and were at peace with it. Tell me about her, Eleanor said as they rode. Martha, tell me about who she was. Samuel was quiet for a moment. She was fierce, fiercer than anyone I ever knew. Came from nothing, same as me. Her father was a drunk who spent what little they had on whiskey. Her mother died when she was 12. She raised herself, basically, taught herself to read, to write, to do figures. Got a job as a school teacher in a town that didn't think women should teach.
Is that how you met? No, I met her in a jail cell. Samuel almost smiled at the memory. She'd been arrested for hitting a man with a frying pan. He'd been bothering one of her students. Martha didn't take kindly to that. She sounds extraordinary. She was. She saw the best in everyone, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. She believed in things, hard things, impossible things. She believed in me when I was just a deputy who couldn't afford a proper coat. His voice softened. She believed she'd die young. Knew it somehow. That's why she told me about you. She didn't know me. She knew you'd come, knew what you'd be like, knew the children would recognize you. Samuel looked at her. I don't pretend to understand it. Martha had a connection to something I can't explain. All I know is she was never wrong about the important things. And she told you to marry the woman who came? She told me to let her in, to not be afraid of loving again. Samuel's jaw tightened. That part's harder, but I'm trying. Eleanor reached over, touched his arm. I'm not asking for love, Sam. I'm asking for honesty, partnership, a chance to build something together. You'll have all of that. Then that's enough. For now. They reached the preacher's home as the sun was setting. Reverend Thomas was a thin man with kind eyes and hands that shook slightly from age. His wife, a plump woman named Sarah, ushered them inside with the warmth of someone who'd seen hundreds of nervous couples standing on her doorstep. Samuel Thornton, haven't seen you since you brought Martha here, 10 years ago? 12. Time flies. Reverend Thomas studied Eleanor. And who's this? Eleanor Prescott. She's agreed to be my wife. Has she now? The Reverend's eyes were sharp. Bit sudden, isn't it? Martha's only been gone 18 months, and Eleanor's not replacing her. She's giving my children a mother they desperately need. That's a practical reason for marriage. It's an honest one. Reverend Thomas considered this. Then he nodded. Honesty's more than most couples start with. Sarah, get the good candles. Looks like we're having a wedding. The ceremony was simple. They stood in the Reverend's small parlor, candles flickering around them, Sarah serving as witness. Eleanor wore her best dress, worn but clean. Samuel wore the same suit he'd worn to marry Martha, the sleeves slightly too short now, the fabric faded but dignified. Do you, Samuel Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer,
in sickness and in health. Until death do you part.
I do.
And do you, Eleanor Prescott, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part.
Eleanor looked at Samuel. At this man who'd pulled her from the snow, who'd defended her to his children, who'd offered her protection and partnership and the chance at a life she'd stopped believing was possible.
I do.
Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Reverend Thomas smiled. You may kiss your bride. Samuel stepped closer. His hands cupped her face, gentle and sure.
Thank you, he murmured,
for choosing us. Then he kissed her. It was soft, sweet, the kiss of a man who'd forgotten how to hope and was just beginning to remember. When he pulled back, Eleanor was crying.
Happy tears, she promised when he looked worried. I didn't think I'd ever have this. Any of this.
You have it now. Samuel brushed a tear from her cheek. You have us. They signed the papers. The Reverend filed them properly, made copies, gave them a certificate that made everything legal and binding. Judge Wade won't be able to touch this, Thomas said. Different county, different jurisdiction. You're married, legal in the eyes of God and the law.
Thank you.
Don't thank me, just take care of each other. The Reverend clasped Samuel's hand. Martha was a special woman, but she's gone, and you're still here. She'd want you to be happy.
I know.
They left at first light the next morning, the certificate tucked safely in Samuel's coat, Billy's bear still clutched in Eleanor's hands. Mrs. Thornton, Samuel said as they rode, how does that sound?
Strange. Good. I don't know.
Eleanor laughed. I've been Eleanor Prescott for 28 years. It's going to take some getting used to. Take all the time you need. They were halfway home when they saw the smoke. Eleanor spotted it first. A dark column rising from the direction of the farm, too thick to be from a chimney, too steady to be anything innocent. Sam! He'd already seen it. His face had gone white. No. He whipped the horses into a gallop. Eleanor held on as the wagon flew over frozen ground, her heart pounding, her mind racing through every terrible possibility. The children, Ezekiel, the house, everything Samuel had built, everything they'd just promised to protect, going up in flames.
Please, she prayed, please let them be okay.
The farm came into view. The barn was burning. Flames shot from the roof, orange and hungry against the gray sky. The animals were loose, running wild in the yard. And standing in front of the house, surrounded by men on horseback, were 3 small figures. Grace, Rosie, Billy. Alive. All 3 of them alive. Eleanor nearly sobbed with relief. But then she saw who was holding them. Fletcher stood behind the children, one hand on Grace's shoulder, his smile visible even from a distance. Beside him, a man in a fine black coat watched the barn burn with an expression of pure satisfaction. Judge Cornelius Wade. Samuel pulled the wagon to a stop. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking.
Sam,
Eleanor grabbed his arm.
Sam, look at me.
He didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on his children.
Samuel, look at me.
Finally, he turned.
They're alive, Eleanor said. The children are alive. That's what matters. Whatever else happens, they're alive.
He's got them. Wade's got my children.
And we're going to get them back.
Eleanor's voice was steady. She didn't know where the calm was coming from, but she held on to it with everything she had.
But we can't do that if we charge in without thinking. We need to be smart. Samuel took a breath, then another. Okay. His jaw set. Let's go get our children. They climbed down from the wagon and walked toward the burning barn, toward the men who wanted to destroy them, toward whatever came next. Together. Wade saw them coming. His smile widened, cold and satisfied, as Samuel and Eleanor approached. The fire roared behind them, casting flickering shadows across the snow. But Eleanor barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the children. Grace stood rigid, her face pale but defiant. Rosie was crying silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. And Billy, her Billy, stood perfectly still with his eyes locked on Eleanor, like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. "Mr. Thornton," Wade's voice carried across the yard, "how kind of you to join us. And I see you've brought your companion." "Wife," Samuel's voice was ice. "Eleanor is my wife." Something flickered in Wade's expression. Surprise, quickly hidden. "Is that so? How convenient. A marriage performed while your children were here, unprotected, vulnerable to anyone who might wish them harm." "Where's Ezekiel?" "The old man?" Fletcher gestured toward the burning barn. "He had an accident. Tried to interfere with official business. Very unfortunate." Eleanor's stomach dropped. "You killed him." "I didn't say that." Fletcher's smile was reptilian. "I said he had an accident. What happens next depends entirely on how cooperative you're willing to be." Samuel took a step forward. 3 of Wade's men moved to intercept him, hands on their guns. "Easy, Mr. Thornton," Wade held up a hand. "Let's not do anything we'll regret. I'm here to make you an offer. A final offer." "I'm not selling my land." "I'm not asking you to sell your land. Not anymore." Wade's eyes moved to Eleanor. "The situation has changed. You've complicated things, Mrs. Thornton. Your presence here creates problems for me. Problems I need resolved." "What kind of problems?" "The kind that come with a federal warrant. The kind that involve Mr. James Whitmore of Boston and his very generous contributions to certain territorial officials." Wade clasped his hands behind his back. "You see, Mr. Whitmore is most eager to see you return to face justice. And I'm most eager to maintain my relationship with Mr. Whitmore. So here's what's going to happen." He stepped closer to the children. Grace flinched. Rosie whimpered. "You're going to come with Mr. Fletcher. Quietly. Willingly. You're going to write a letter explaining that you've chosen to leave, that the marriage was a mistake, that you realized you don't belong here. And then you're going to disappear. And if I refuse, then these children will be taken into protective custody. Their father will be arrested for harboring a fugitive, and this farm will be seized as evidence of criminal conspiracy." Wade's smile was poison. "I don't want to do that, Mrs. Thornton. I'm not a monster. But I will do what's necessary to protect my interests." Eleanor's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists. "You're asking me to abandon my family to save them. I'm giving you a choice, more than most people get. That's not a choice. That's coercion. Call it what you like. The outcome is the same." Wade checked his pocket watch. "You have 5 minutes to decide." Eleanor looked at Samuel. His face was blank, controlled, but she could see the rage burning behind his eyes. The helpless fury of a man watching everything he loved being threatened. She looked at the children. At Grace, trying so hard to be brave. At Rosie, too young to understand why this was happening. At Billy, silent and still, and watching her with absolute trust. He'd given her his bear, his most precious thing. He'd called her Mama. And now she was supposed to walk away? No. The word came out quiet. Wade leaned forward. "I'm sorry?"
No, louder this time. I'm not leaving. I'm not writing your letter. I'm not abandoning my family to make your life easier. Mrs. Thornton, I don't think you understand the severity. I understand perfectly. Eleanor stepped forward, past Samuel's reaching hand, past the men with their guns, until she was standing directly in front of Wade. You're a bully.
A small, pathetic man who uses power to crush anyone who won't bow to him. You've been doing it for years. The Henderson family, the farmers who wouldn't sell, anyone who stood in the way of your greed. Wade's expression hardened. Careful. Or what? You'll burn another barn? Threaten more children? Kill another old man who tried to do the right thing? Eleanor's voice rose. Go ahead, do your worst. But I'm not running anymore, and neither is my husband. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake. Eleanor turned to the men surrounding them. All of you. Do you know who this man works for? James Whitmore. A man who attacks women who say no to him. A man who burns people to remind them of their place. Is that who you want to serve? Is that who you want to be? Some of the men shifted uncomfortably. One of them wouldn't meet her eyes. She's lying. Fletcher's voice was sharp. She's a criminal, a thief. You can't believe anything she says. Then why is your boss so desperate to silence her? Samuel stepped up beside Eleanor. If she's just a thief, why send men across the country to find her? Why threaten children? Why burn barns? His voice carried across the yard. I was a territorial marshal for 15 years. I know how justice works, and I know what corruption looks like. This isn't justice. This is revenge. Enough. Wade's composure cracked. I've given you a chance to do this peacefully. You've refused. So now we do it my way. He turned to Fletcher. Take her. Arrest Thornton. Put the children in the wagon. Fletcher moved toward Eleanor. And then Billy screamed. Not a word. A sound. Raw and primal and so full of terror that everyone froze. He tore free from the man holding him and ran straight to Eleanor, slamming into her legs, wrapping his arms around her with desperate strength. No! The word ripped from his throat. No! Mama! Don't go! Don't go! Eleanor dropped to her knees, pulling him close. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Don't go. Please don't go. I'll be good. I'll be so good. Billy was sobbing now, his words tumbling out in a flood after 18 months of silence. Don't leave like the other, Mama. Don't go to heaven. Stay. Please stay. Eleanor's heart shattered. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. I'm staying right here with you. You promise? I promise. She looked up at Wade, at this man who'd threatened to tear apart a child who'd just found his voice. Look at him. Her voice was quiet but carried. Look at what you've done. This boy hasn't spoken in 18 months. His mother died giving him life, and he's been drowning in grief ever since. And now, finally, he's found someone to hold on to. Someone who makes him feel safe enough to speak. And you want to take that away? Wade's face was stone. This changes nothing. This changes everything. A new voice. One of Wade's men stepped forward. Older, weathered, with the look of someone who'd seen too much. I've got grandchildren, Wade. I signed up to serve warrants and keep the peace, not to terrorize babies. Harris, I'm done. Harris unbuckled his gun belt, dropped it in the snow. Find someone else to do your dirty work. Another man stepped forward. Then another. One by one, Wade's men backed away, their faces tight with something that might have been shame, or might have been relief. Fletcher looked around wildly. What are you doing? We have orders. Orders from who? Harris asked. A judge who burns barns and threatens children?
A businessman from Boston who hurts women? He spat in the snow. I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of, but I won't do this. Wade's face had gone purple. You're all making a terrible mistake. No, Cornelius. The voice came from behind them. You're the one who made the mistake. Eleanor turned. A group of riders was approaching from the direction of town. At the front, a man in a long coat with a badge glinting on his chest. Federal Marshal Duncan, Samuel breathed. How? Your friend Ezekiel. Duncan dismounted, his eyes sweeping the scene. He's alive, by the way. Took a beating, but he's tough. Made it to town and found me. Told me everything. This is outside your jurisdiction. Wade's voice was shrill. This is a territorial matter. It became a federal matter when you started taking bribes from James Whitmore. When you used your position to persecute innocent people. When you conspired to transport a woman across state lines against her will. Duncan pulled a paper from his coat. Cornelius Wade, you're under arrest for corruption, conspiracy, and about 15 other charges I'll read to you on the way to the territorial prison. You can't do this! I just did. Duncan nodded to his men. Take him. Fletcher, too. It happened fast after that. Wade and Fletcher were cuffed, loaded onto horses, their protests fading into the cold air. The men who'd abandoned Wade were questioned and released. Marshal Duncan took statements from Samuel and Eleanor, his pen scratching across paper as they told him everything. Through it all, Billy refused to let go of Eleanor. He clung to her, his face buried against her neck, his small body trembling. She held him and stroked his hair and murmured promises she intended to keep. Is it over? Grace asked. She'd been standing silent through the whole confrontation, Rosie pressed against her side. Is it really over? The worst of it, Samuel said. He crouched down, pulled both girls into his arms. Wade's going to prison, so is Fletcher. They can't hurt us anymore. What about the man from Boston? Rosie's voice was small. The one who hurt Miss Eleanor. I mean, Mama Eleanor. You can call me Mama, Eleanor's voice cracked, if you want to. Rosie's face lit up. Really? Really? The little girl threw herself at Eleanor, nearly knocking her over. Grace followed more slowly, but her arms were just as tight when they wrapped around Eleanor's waist. We're a family now, Grace whispered. A real family. We are. Samuel stood. His eyes found Eleanor's over the children's heads. The barn's gone. We'll rebuild it. It's going to be hard. The winter's barely half over. We've lost supplies, shelter for the animals. We'll figure it out. Eleanor reached out, took his hand. Together. Samuel's fingers intertwined with hers. Together, he agreed. The next weeks were the hardest of Eleanor's life. They worked from dawn to dusk, salvaging what they could from the burned barn, building temporary shelters for the animals, rationing supplies that had to last until spring. The cold was brutal. The work was endless. Some nights Eleanor fell into bed so exhausted she couldn't remember lying down. But she wasn't alone anymore. Samuel worked beside her, steady and sure, his presence a constant comfort. The children helped in every way they could. Grace took over the cooking, proving herself nearly as skilled as her mother had been. Rosie kept spirits high with her endless chatter and boundless energy. And Billy, who had finally found his voice, talked constantly, making up for 18 months of silence with a flood of words that never seemed to stop. Mama, look at this rock. Mama, did you see that bird? Mama, can we have pancakes for breakfast? Mama, why is the sky blue? Mama, Mama, Mama! Eleanor answered every question, acknowledged every observation, treasured every single mama, like the gift it was. Neighbors came to help. People who'd been too afraid to stand against Wade now showed up with tools, supplies, offers of labor. Old Harris, the man who'd first broken ranks, brought lumber from his own barn. Mrs. Miller from the general store sent a wagon full of provisions with a note that simply said, "I'm sorry." "They're trying to make up for what they didn't do," Grace observed one afternoon. "People are complicated," Eleanor said. "Sometimes they make bad choices because they're scared. Sometimes they find their courage too late. But better late than never. Do you forgive them?" Eleanor thought about it. "I'm working on it." Spring came slowly, then all at once. The snow melted, the ground thawed. Green shoots pushed up through brown earth, and the world came back to life. So did the farm. The new barn was smaller than the old one, but sturdy. The animals were healthy. The fields were plowed and planted. And the house that had felt so empty when Eleanor first arrived, was full of noise and laughter and love. "Mama!" Rosie burst through the door one afternoon. "Papa says to come outside. There's a surprise." Eleanor set down her mending and followed.
Samuel stood by the new barn. The children gathered around him. In his hands was a wooden sign, freshly carved and painted. "Thornton Family Farm, established, 1875. And underneath, in smaller letters, Samuel, Eleanor, Grace, Rosie, and Billy. "I know it's not much," Samuel said, "but I wanted to make it official. This is our home, all of ours." Eleanor's eyes blurred with tears. "It's perfect. Can we hang it up? Can we? Please?" Rosie was bouncing with excitement. "Let's do it together." They hung the sign above the barn door, all 5 of them holding it in place while Samuel hammered in the nails. When it was secure, they stepped back to admire their work. "It's crooked," Grace observed. "It's perfect," Billy countered. "It's ours," Eleanor said. "That's what matters." Samuel's arm came around her waist. She leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. "Thank you," he murmured. "For what?" "For staying, for fighting, for loving my children like they were your own. They are my own. They've been mine since the moment they found me in the snow." Samuel turned her to face him. His eyes, winter sky gray, were soft with something she'd learned to recognize. "I love you, Eleanor Thornton." The words hit her like sunlight after a long winter. "I love you too." He kissed her then, gentle and deep, while 3 children made exaggerated gagging sounds behind them. "Gross," Rosie announced. "Kissing is gross." "You'll change your mind someday," Grace said. "Never." "Mama?" Billy tugged at Eleanor's skirt. "Mama, can we have cake to celebrate, please?" Eleanor laughed, the sound bright and free. "Yes, baby, we can have cake." That night, after the cake was eaten and the children were in bed, Eleanor stood on the porch watching the stars. She thought about the woman who'd collapsed in the snow, certain she was dying, certain she was worthless, certain that no one would ever want her again. That woman felt like a stranger now. She thought about Martha, the woman she'd never met but somehow knew, the woman who'd predicted her coming, who'd described her to a husband who hadn't believed, who'd trusted that her children would be taken care of. "Thank you," Eleanor thought, "for seeing me before I existed, for loving your family enough to plan for a future you wouldn't see." She thought about James Whitmore, still in Boston, still powerful, still dangerous. Marshal Duncan had warned her that the investigation was ongoing, that it might be years before Whitmore faced true justice. But Eleanor wasn't afraid anymore. She had a home. She had a family. She had a husband who loved her, and children who needed her, and a life worth protecting. Let Whitmore come. Let anyone come.
She wasn't running anymore. The door opened behind her. Samuel stepped out, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You'll freeze out here."
I'm not cold.
"You're always cold."
Not anymore.
He stood beside her, looking at the same stars. "Any regrets?" Eleanor thought about the question, really thought about it. "No," she said finally. "Not one." "Good." They stood in comfortable silence. "Sam?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad Billy found me." Samuel smiled. "Me too." Inside the house, a child's voice called out.
Mama? Mama, I had a bad dream.
Eleanor turned toward the sound. "Coming, baby." She paused at the door, looked back at her husband, at the stars, at the land that was now hers. Then she went inside to comfort her son. Because that's what mothers did. And that's what she was now. A mother. A wife. A woman who'd walk through fire and snow and come out the other side whole. Eleanor Thornton had found her home. And she was never letting go.